Okay. Stunya, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself? Tell me what it is you're currently doing and what you would like to be doing moving forward.
Absolutely. So right now I'm a student at USC. I'm studying business, but I realized more and more that I started kind of just playing around with Photoshop and stuff on my own and never took like a graphic design class, but I'm really realizing that I really enjoy that space and I want to enter it. So while I'm graduating, I'm also trying to see how I can like create my own design career and eventually be able to switch into that side. So right now I pretty much do graphics for like events that I host. And then I so I host a lot of events and I will be interning at DreamWorks. So I'll be like doing events and stuff for them. But I want to be able to move into like design for marketing for TV and film.
Very cool.
Yeah, thanks.
Um, Interning at DreamWorks. When does that start?
That's this summer.
Very exciting. That should be
Mhm.
really cool. Is that, I guess it's in California, correct?
Yeah, California.
Very cool. Very cool.
Mhm. I was gonna say
Um,
it's probably
s-
late for you.
no, it's early. It's actually
Oh,
early. I just woke up. It's like 8 o'clock in the morning here.
oh, I'm sorry.
No worries. This is only like this is really the only time that I can do this. Otherwise, I have to ask people to wake up at like 9 a.m. on their side.
Mhm.
Um, so you are taking business. How did you, I guess like how did you start messing around and making these events and then figuring out that you kind of, want to also do some design stuff?
So hosting events like concerts and like fashion shows, like I just hosted one yesterday actually. Um, and I do that with like students on campus and things like that. And I've realized that first of all, it's hard to rely on other people and like other designers to get stuff in on time. So I realized I was making a lot of graphics anyways. And then I realized that I really like spending time on it and the aesthetics behind like photography and design. So it was kind of like picked up out of a necessity, but then yeah, I just really enjoy the process. And it sucks that I'm figuring this out after graduating pretty much, but yeah, I hope to like figure out a direction to like teach myself or take a course down the line or something.
Um, well, I mean, listen, you can always practice in your free time, and I think there's nothing wrong with, you said you're studying business.
Mhm.
There's nothing wrong with knowing the fundamentals of, how to business, how to quote unquote business. So, um, I will say this, like there are a few designers that I spoke with through these portfolio reviews, a few designers that I know personally that are self-taught, and they didn't go to a 4-year program or a 2-year program or whatever. Um, they went to, the University of YouTube and social media and things like that. So, if it's something that you really want to do, I'm sure you'll figure out how to teach yourself and learn, the ins and outs of it. But it's cool that you're also, you're doing these events, you're hosting these events, and you're also, creating the assets for them. And that's kind of like usually a nice little um something that a lot of like myself and my friends do, where, hey, we want to do these things, but it's also because like we want to be able to make nice design or work on the projects that we want to work on. So like we'll come up with these ideas on our own and then make the things ourselves.
Mhm.
So again, there's nothing wrong with that, and I'm sure over time you'll learn. What would you like to tell me a little bit why you wanted to sign up for this portfolio review and like what you would like to get out of it.
Yeah, definitely. I guess my website is pretty new and I'm coming from like business and marketing and I'm trying to create like a portfolio that has marketing, some of my photography work, and then eventually I want to make it just mainly design work. But kind of just
Mhm.
like you said, I've been using YouTube to kind of like understand what a case is and try to build things like that. So everything is so DIY and I just really wanted like structure on how to go about building a portfolio and like how to record projects as well. Because I know all my older stuff, I don't really have like anything to show for it besides like 1 or 2 photos.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Give me 1 second.
Mhm.
I just had to fix this. Okay. Where is it? There you go. So I would say, why does this do this? I don't know why it does this. I'm sorry. I'm looking at like other windows that open up when I have to have Zoom open.
Okay.
Okay, so you eventually want to like have this be the place for all of your stuff, I guess. As you were saying, right? You want to be able to have a place for your photo, your design work, your events.
Kind of. And I also am open to ideas if I'm not able to have those all. But yeah, I'm hoping to have design as the focus and then just like my other stuff behind that. So like this is the event that I'd hosted yesterday and there's like a
Mhm,
video at the very end. But like yeah, this is what I'm trying to show, like assets that I've done and how they look in the real space and stuff.
mhm. 1 second. Let me just make sure the volume is off for this. I don't know what video player this is. Okay. You should try to upload some of those. I'm sorry.
I think it's .mov. Like it's just the
Hmm?
Adobe portfolio one.
Okay. This is Adobe Portfolio.
Mhm.
Well, it might be. I don't know. I don't know how to work. I've never messed within Adobe, but it might be worth seeing if you can use something like Vimeo to host the video and then just dropping the link in here. Yeah,
Okay.
there's something wrong with this. I don't know why. It might just be my connection.
Mhm.
Um, tell me a little bit about your internship at DreamWorks. What's that looking like, shaping up to be?
Um, so basically it'll be kind of like events and communications. So I will be making like little marketing, like little posters and invitations for around the office, as well as working on like just tiny assets for like big reveals or any sort of like communication material.
Hmm.
Yeah. So any sort of event I'll be working on.
Gotcha.
Mm.
I'm just clicking through some of this stuff.
Yeah. And it's definitely like not all of them, like each one pretty much has a different format because I was like testing and I wanted to see with your opinion which one is the best format. There's this one earlier one I'll show you. I think it's my favorite format, but I don't know. Because this one
Which
I
one
just
should I click on?
it's the Rahma Center one, bottom right. So that one I used InDesign to make like a little thing to read as you go down to see like the original
Hmm.
logo and some ideas and then explain a story. But yeah. But like
Very cool.
yeah, just trying to figure out the way to lay it out or just I've seen other people's portfolios
Uh,
just put the info in there or like put the final graphic.
yeah, so just a technical thing. You have this image. This is an image, right, that you've made.
Mhm.
And what'll happen is as you scale your page, it's going to shrink. So this text is going to get really small. It's going to
Mhm.
be kind of hard to read. So for something like that, the format, I see what you're saying about the format and the layout. Just try to get it on the page. Don't try to make this image and then export it and then have that be the um
Mhm.
like the thing that is on your website.
Okay.
um I will say this. One, I think it's amazing that you have sort of the idea in your head. You're like, yeah, one, I need to be documenting these events and stuff like that. And I also want to be working on the assets because I have this idea in my mind that I want to like get out of my head and make it into the real world. I think that's really awesome. I think it's cool that you're studying business. And again, I think it's a great foundation. Doesn't mean that you can't do design like you are, and or take it more serious if you'd like. Um, tell me about this events thing. Tell me like what got you into events and what got you excited, and like how did that happen? You know, like why are you going to DreamWorks to go do events?
I love the idea of working on different projects every single day. Um, and just having so many new people to meet and just different problems to tackle. And I also love I'm interested in many different industries like, fashion, music, film, like I'm everywhere. So I like that I can work on multiple different tasks. And now I have like a roster of DJs I know and like sound people I know and like designers and all that stuff. So I just don't want to be doing the same thing every day. And then I also love like when something takes a long time and then you finally get to like see it all together. I think it's a lot of fun.
Well, that's good because that's life. So,
Yeah.
what year are you in school?
I'm a senior, so I'm about to
Hmm.
graduate. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Mm.
Looking at your portfolio again, I think like I think you have this beautiful moment where you are sort of like again, you know, like you're at the end of your school studies, you know, your program. It's kind of like right before you're getting ready to go into the real world. And I think you have this wonderful opportunity to use both of these as like things that you ultimately want to do. You don't have to be one or the other. You know, you can do events, you can do the design for the events, and like you can continue to figure out what it is you ultimately want to do. Um, I think like, you know, for example, I interned first I was a photographer at a nightclub while I was in university. It was called Pasha, and I photographed a bunch of nightclubs in New York, and I did that for a while, while I was in university, and then eventually one year, I interned there as a marketing intern, and I wasn't doing design, but I was studying graphic design. Um, and after I graduated, I worked there for a couple of years on and off between photography, and I actually became the graphic designer there. And I had this moment where I was like, okay, you know, do I want to be a photographer? Because I had already done it for like 4 years. Um, I thought about getting rid of just kind of quitting, dropping everything and becoming like an artist agent and going, because I had made a lot of contacts at, you know, agencies like CIA and WMG and stuff like that. And it took me a while to figure out. I mean, I was literally about to become a mailroom boy for like $20 an hour and work my way up the ladder, apparently. So, you know, that was all, you know, something that I needed to figure out as I went
Yeah.
and really understand what it is I want to do. And I think it's really early for you to it's like, you know, again, it's early, and I mean that in the best possible way, for you to be trying, like, as you're doing all this stuff, because they all go hand in hand. And I would say it's like kind of early to say like what is the one thing that you should do. um and that kind of contributes to the idea of like, oh, how should you go about changing your portfolio? I think like your portfolio is serving exactly what it needs to be doing right now, because you're
Mhm.
going into events and marketing and business, and it's great to have a place like this to show that work, right? I would
Mhm.
say this, I would actually find it very interesting the way you structure these projects, right? I almost think like you should approach it as you are this multifaceted human being where you don't really worry about graphic design, like, you know, kind of bucketing them under graphic design, photography, and marketing.
Mhm.
I think you should, and you know, you could choose to listen or not. You could choose to do whatever you want with this advice. I would consider like just making it about the events, you know, making it about the experiences, and letting that letting all the materials, all the work, and all the photography, whatever that you've done for those events show through, rather than being like, this is the graphic design I did for this event, and then this is the photography I did for this event. If you were to think it as like you are a designer or you're a piece of the team that worked on Coachella, right? Coachella is not going to sit there, or whoever is on that team is not going to necessarily just sit there and show you like their logo that they made for Coachella this one year. Like they're going to talk about everything that they did in that event, and all of the ins and outs in the process. And I think that approach would really add to your portfolio, again, rather than being like, here's just the UK Vision London tour that I did. I mean, I know that this is a project that you did necessarily. Can you tell me a little bit about this?
Yeah, so this is actually part of my final project for my degree. I am going on a brief tour with some other USC students to London, and basically we'll be just touring around London and doing like business. I'll be like head of branding for a few different bands for like a month this summer.
That's really cool.
Mhm.
So this is a project in progress.
Yeah.
So I would like look at it as, this. Now I don't know what head of branding means necessarily in this context, right?
Mhm.
But I think to me, the more interesting kind of like way to go about presenting this is very much like this is a big campaign where, I'm touring with a bunch of students, I'm touring with a bunch of bands. I want to know about those bands. And I could almost pick apart, how like each one, I could almost see a place where like whichever band you work with, you kind of detail a little bit like so and so is about this, and they wanted to work with me on sort of this sort of direction, and so this is what I came up with, and so and so and so and so. And you would do that potentially for the other bands. You could do it for just one, as a case study. But I think like this idea of combining, because like again, these are all just very close to each other.
Yeah.
And the way that you're using it in terms of events is also very like it just goes hand in hand. I want to kind of point out someone that I think is like really similar and someone that I've spoken with before. Magic Spoon founder. No, it wasn't Magic Spoon. Hold on, I gotta go to the website and I gotta find, I don't remember her name. Podcast. Emily. Okay. Emily Elise Miller. She came up with the cereal Off Limits. And prior to that, she was doing very much kind of like what you're sort of mentioning, where she was like throwing her own events. She was like really interested in food and like creating cooking, like a kind of like a community of like people that also enjoyed food and tried food, enjoyed organizing events for those specific things. So she put together like this thing called the Breakfast Club, which was like the event. And then let me see, no, the site's not working anymore. Damn it. Well, here, let me see if I can. Emily Elise Miller Breakfast Club. Let's see. Okay, yeah, so she would put these events on and like she would design like some of the assets. She would work with other people to design it at times. She would come up with like things like merch for it and like, other things that they could get as takeaways when they went to these events. And it was all really cool. And again, it was like she had this interest of like one, organizing and getting people together. She wanted to like explore the food scene in these new areas that she was visiting, and she would also like create relationships as she was doing it with like the cooks. And this ultimately like led her to like starting her own like couple of projects and brands and things like that. And I think very much of like, you have this creativity, you have this idea of like wanting to put events together, and just let that be the thing, all the things, like let that be the thing, and talk about it in a complete piece and a complete study or case study as a complete presentation. Don't necessarily worry too much about the, oh, well, here's specifically the photography that I do, or here's specifically the marketing that I do. Let that all show through as you document, these events or these kind of moments that you put together. I say that, and it comes to mind that like perhaps you have your teachers or your professors or it's kind of like required for you to do that for school, and that's fine. Do what you have to do to get out of school. But when you're done, like think about potentially kind of like just merging all of them together to really just like focus it on like this, like you have a goal, right? Like the thing I think a lot about is you have a goal of putting this event together and making it the best event. How you do that doesn't necessarily matter as long as it's the best event, right? So like what tools you use, if you take photos, if you don't take photos, all that stuff doesn't really matter at the end of the day. It's like the end result that's the big payoff. So, think about that a bit. And as you are just about to leave the program, you'll then figure out like, okay, what if there is one thing I want to focus on, whether that's design or this or that, that'll kind of like start to inform, okay, what do I want to focus, or how do I want to present it? But I think, for now, as you're like learning about this stuff, right? Because if I had to say, it sounds like the event part is the most exciting for you.
I just like that it's like a combination of it all. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, exactly. So like at the end of the day, it may not matter how you get the event done. It's more that the event is a success in your eyes and that people enjoy it. And who knows, you may ultimately start to work with more people that are really, really like, good at this one thing, and then you have them do that thing, and while you can do other stuff, or you may continue to do everything yourself, and that's great too. But I think like, again, at the end of the day, it's to me, in my opinion, it's always been the end result, is sort of like is really key. It's not so much how you get there, right? Like if you think of it like an engineer can build an app a million different ways, but like it all doesn't really matter as long as it gets to the objective and does the thing that we need it to do. And so these are like the same, the portfolio and what you're showing is sort of that idea. It's like, these are all the great things that I'm really proud of and what I do. And whether I did the graphic design or whether I did the photography doesn't necessarily matter, kind of, obviously if you were to work with other people, it'd be worth crediting, but getting into like the super nitty gritty at times you don't have to do that. Does that make sense? I'm sorry, I went on a rant there.
No, that definitely makes a lot of sense. And that's what I was hoping to do with this most recent event, is kind of just to show like I've never had a project where I was more in charge of like every single element of it happening, and like, having like 400 people attend and it being really successful and popular. Like it was really exciting, and there were so many things not even design related that went into that. So I definitely agree. I guess the only issue though is that I don't want to completely just take some sort of director role where I just do events, because I feel like I've always admired design. I follow like only designers and photographers. A lot of my friends are doing all that stuff, and I feel like I've never taken the time to prioritize it. So I am trying to now. But so I guess that's kind of why I'm like trying to figure out how I can really like start churning out design projects, like kind of lower the barrier to starting that too.
Yeah, I mean, I would I don't want to I don't excuse me. I don't like I'm not trying to pump up my own stuff while I do these portfolio reviews, but I do think like it's really, so I did a podcast a while ago, and I did it, I had Emily as a guest, and I really think like you should listen to her and listen to the episode. I'll send it over.
Mhm.
Um just because like she, like, a lot of things that you're saying very much remind me of that conversation of, like, she is very into, she has a ton of friends who are photographers, designers. She's very into design, and like really has that appreciation for it. And you're somewhat the same. You love it, and you follow, you're looking at it all the time, and that's great. And that, I think, is also a really big part of being a creative in general, is just constantly looking at beautiful things and being curious, and being, hey, what do I want to, why do I like this, and how do I want to use this later on in a future project or something like that. um and then also, in addition to that, the whole idea of the podcast that I kind of created at the time was to very much just practice, because, like, I was designing the website for it at the time. I was designing the logo. I was designing, what the materials were when I was sharing the podcast episode and the album art and all of that stuff. I mean, again, I don't want to, like, it's a shameless plug, I guess. This is the get out of my way, this thing. So podcast, like, I changed it, damn it. Well, anyway, the no, I gotta go to the page that, wait, is it this? No. Anchor Well-Fed Design Podcast. I want to just show you, like, what the payoff for me was to be able to work on that. Oh man, it's really hard. I don't know if you could see this, but, like, at one point I had all of the album covers on one page so you could see it all.
Mm.
And that was like in this idea of like wanting to practice and get better at design and do these things and come up with these projects on my own. I had a page where all the album covers were lined up next to each other. And, like, that was the payoff, like, having all of those designs that I've made for each season to look at and see, like, that was, in a way, like, such a nice thing to have. I wish I had that page still, but I changed the website. So, like, this was the album cover for season 4, and then these were the album covers for, like, season 3, like a different direction. And then, like, season 1 was I think season 1 was the worst. I had, like, a white background with a bunch of emojis in it because that was cool, like, so that was, to be able to work on this project and then have all of these things that I created for it and look back and be like, yeah, that's, like, this is why I did this, to, like, get better and be able to do this. Like, that was the reward for me in that sense. And so there's nothing stopping you from doing it. If anything, I think you have the opportunity with this background in marketing and event, that you can pretty much think of anything you want and just ask yourself, is this possible for me to do? And then do it. And also being able to design things yourself is just kind of like I think, like, that kind of superhero power, where if, like, I will say, like, the one thing that I really do enjoy about being a graphic designer is I feel like I have this superpower where, as long as I have either the crazy idea and believe that I can do it, then most of the time I can, like, market it and come up with the materials for it and make it as real as possible, and, like, you have that as well. You have that opportunity as well. So there's nothing really stopping you from saying, like, hey, you know what? I want to go and do a podcast myself, or I want to go do an event series around, LA or wherever in California about these things,
Absolutely. No, that's definitely really great advice. A tiny question, actually. It's like,
Sure.
for me, I feel like every time I make a new design, like, once I uploaded my fashion show stuff, I, like, immediately don't like anything I've made before that. Is that, like, how it is typically, or?
Yeah. Every time I make a new website page, I like go back and because I'm at this point now with called the design guide, .com that I'm doing a lot of different things on it. And it feels like each part I'm introducing like something new, or like a new visual direction, or a new way of presenting information. And that sort of informs like the idea that I have to go and change the other things. Now, that is going to happen regardless. You're experiencing it more on a macro level, where like your projects, right? Like my portfolio website, I haven't updated since like 2018, 2019, I think. And actually 2020 probably. So 3 years already.
Mhm.
And the work on there I have is really good, but it's also like it's really important to kind of like know that your portfolio is supposed to do like a job where it's supposed to capture those moments, and not so much in like be the thing that speaks to like your it's not supposed to like, how do I say this? It's not supposed to be like the reflection of you in this moment. It's supposed to catalog. It's like an index, right? So like in 2020, my design skills or what I was working on was very different from what I'm working on today, or how I present things today. And that's okay. It's supposed to reflect that, because at the time that was good design, or that was the objective of the project. So like introducing new projects, yeah, sure, you'll look back at other ones and be like, wow, this is so bad. But that's okay, because like time has passed and things don't, you're not going to go back and rework that project. But I think like, again, something that might help is this idea that we're talking about of how you should present that work, rather than focusing just on like the small pieces of these like bigger projects. Present it as a project so that it captures all of that goodness, right?
Mhm.
Rather than saying like, oh, here's the logo for this event, and now when I upload a logo from something I did more recently, I look back at that and I'm like, like that's going to happen. But again, I think it's when you're younger, because like your portfolio is so important, that happens more often. Now I'm at the point where I work on smaller pieces of bigger projects that are the things that I'm focused on, and that happens, but it doesn't happen on my portfolio. I could care less now. Like the
Mhm.
work on there, like I said, is from years ago. I'm still very happy with it. It speaks to times and experiences in my life and my career where I was looking to solve very specific problems, or working with very specific companies that kind of, give an idea of what I can achieve. And now the things I work on are very much more so of like, what can I achieve outside of design that are more business oriented and things like that.
Definitely, definitely. Okay, and then I guess just more specifically, when you talk about um providing all of the event information, was there like a specific layout? Because I do want to like tell a story, and I feel like I liked a little bit of the direction I was going with that one with the text about like, here was the problem, and here was like, this was the brief pretty much, and then this is how I developed it, and this was my solution. Um, but at the same time, I know that people are scrolling through portfolios like just very quickly. So I wanted to see like what would be a good example of like, this is my event idea, and then these are all the different things that I did.
Yeah, I mean, that is that is sort of the thing that um you'll kind of like figure out over time, like more clearly, like have a clearer idea of it. But I will say, like, kind of as you mentioned, this idea of like problem solution, right? And you want to be able to tell a story. So for the FIA, the FIA, I don't want to just see the finished assets. I want to know, like, okay, why does this event go on every year? Um, you know, kind of think of it like, how do you explain this to someone in person, and then get those ideas down on paper, right? So when does why does the FIA go on, or why does it get um why does it happen every year? What made you think about this year's direction differently, visual direction? How did you want to present it? What did you know, like, I guess in terms of the marketing aspect, like how did you know that social media would be a great place to publish or market the event, things like that? Like those are also really important pieces that I find, because again, that helps give context around why you made the design decisions that you made.
Mhm.
And then I think for you, it's also going to be really important to show, I mean, it's really important in general, but I think you have more of an opportunity to show like, or expose and showcase the like kind of end results of like what you're saying. Like, yeah, we had like 400 attendees and we sold X amount of tickets and we sold, this much. And, we raised this much money. Like those numbers, those outcomes are really important. And again, that's why I think like those things are somewhat more important than necessarily like separating out like the photography and the marketing. Again, like you're working on these big projects. And yes, you are doing all those aspects, but when you're not speaking with other designers, when you're not speaking with other creatives, like they have a similar end goal in mind and they want to know that you can do it. And then it doesn't matter how you get there,
Yeah.
like clients come to me and they're like, we want websites. Like I need a website done. Cool. Great. Well, does it need to be on Squarespace? Does it need to be on this? No. Can it be on anything that I make it as long as it's really easy? Yes. Cool. Then I'm going to go ahead and find the easiest thing for you to use that I can make really pretty and nice. And you're going to use it, So like those, again, those details become less important rather than the outcome of like what a client is asking me to do and what they ultimately need to do with that as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Any other questions or anything like that you want to go over? I mean, I know we looked at your portfolio a bit and we kind of just touched on like, how you should consider laying this out and how you should kind of like tell that story for a project. But anything outside of that, we could also, I know you've had a few questions, but if you have any more, you can feel free to ask.
Yeah. I guess one more thing is just kind of how to position yourself best when you're new. Um, right now I definitely have like quantity on there, but then if I choose only the projects that I feel like are the most well developed or the most appealing to me now, I would probably only have like 3 of those projects up. But at the same time, I feel like I've done so many things and maybe quantity is better to show that I've like just like the variety of things that I've touched. I just like just any sort of general advice you have for like presenting uh for presenting content when you're not exactly at the place where you're able to like think of an idea and make it exactly how you want it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So I'm a big believer in the quality over quantity when it comes to portfolio. Like I think I don't know how many projects I have in my portfolio anymore. Probably like 5. But again, those are all over like a couple of years. And so when you're just starting off, I think one, it's really important to have quality. So yes, you may have a lot of stuff now. And if you were to narrow that down, you may have 3. I think that's better.
Mhm.
Um, because what I mean by quality and what I mean by better is that you're able to go talk about more of that story that we just kind of mentioned, of that like process, and give people that context of like how these things started and got to the end point. I think that's really important. That also kind of really communicates a level of experience to whoever's looking at your work, that like, and it makes it easier for them to imagine how they might want to work with you rather than just like putting up the final design assets or the final photographs that you made. Being able to talk about these things in a complete picture, I think, is really helpful. And so I would actually push to, have you like narrow some of your stuff down and have it be the most complete projects that you can talk about, and include text throughout the whole, the case study and things like that, rather than just having a project here with just images or a project here with just images and things like that. So I
Yeah,
would think about that.
definitely. That's really helpful. Thanks.
Alrighty. If you have any questions, you have my email. You can always send me a note.
Mm.
After this review, you'll get a link to a feedback questionnaire. It's just like 2 questions, 3 questions. The faster you can fill that out and get it back to me, the quicker I can get you these review notes and send you the link to the recording so that you have it if you want to reference it.
Definitely. Thanks so much.
All right, Sonia, it was so lovely to meet you. And it was awesome to look at some of your stuff. And I hope you have a great rest of your day or night.
Yes, yeah, Nate. But thanks so much, you
Awesome.
too.
Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Bye.